China's trade war with the U.S. is rewriting the rules of global power. In 48 hours, Beijing obliterated a $14.3 billion American industry. This isn't just about soybean sits. A calculated attack on the U.S. dollar's dominance. In April 2025, the global trade landscape convulsed under a seismic blow, exposing the brittle threads of economic interdependence. China's 125% retaliatory tariff on all U.S. goods was not a mere policy tweak, but a calculated counterstrike to President Trump's import taxes targeting $90 billion of Chinese products. This was no diplomatic skirmish, it was a declaration of economic warfare, a thunderbolt aimed at the pulsing heart of America's agricultural sector. Corn, wheat, and soybean prices plummeted, sending shockwaves through the Midwest, where farmers, the stewards of America's breadbasket, watched their livelihoods teeter on the brink. These crops are more than commodities. They are the lifeblood of rural communities, the foundation of a way of life that has endured for generations. China's tariffs didn't just disrupt markets, they sought to fracture the spine of American agriculture, targeting a sector that embodies the nation's resilience and identity. The numbers tell a harrowing tale. Soybeans, a $14.3 billion U.S. export to China in 2024, were the crown jewel of America's agricultural trade, a linchpin for farm states that powered rural economies. For years, China's insatiable demand fueled prosperity, with the U.S. supplying nearly a third of its monthly soybean imports. But within 48 hours of Trump's tariffs, China's response was swift and merciless, a chess move that toppled a king in a single stroke. This wasn't a trade hiccup. It was a deliberate test of America's economic fortitude, a challenge to gauge how much pressure the U.S. could withstand before cracking. Like a predator circling a wounded animal, China zeroed in on a vulnerability, exposing the perils of relying on a single market for economic stability. This tariff tempest was more than a policy shift, it was a signal of intent, a gauntlet thrown down to the world's largest economy. China's actions revealed a strategy to exploit America's dependence on agricultural exports, turning a strength into a liability. The ripples reached far beyond the fields, unsettling Wall Street traders, Pentagon strategists, and global markets bracing for the fallout. This was a wake-up call. In the 21st century, trade is war by other means, and China was playing with ruthless precision. The tariff war wasn't just about economics, it was about power, leverage, and the future of global influence. As the dust settled, one truth became clear. America's heartland had become the front line in a battle it was ill-prepared to fight. China's soybean ban is crippling American farmers. They erased $1.1 billion in U.S. contracts overnight. But this isn't just about crop sits, a political dagger aimed at Trump's voter base. Picture a cargo ship, laden with 2.4 million tons of U.S. soybeans, slicing through the Pacific's vast expanse, only to receive an urgent order to change course. In April 2025, this wasn't a thought experiment, it was a devastating reality. China canceled all U.S. soybean shipments overnight, a move that sent shockwaves through global trade networks. By noon, trading terminals in Singapore buzzed with a chilling alert. $1.1 billion in U.S. farm contracts had evaporated as China redirected its demand to Brazil. This wasn't a logistical misstep, it was a controlled demolition, with soybeans as the fuse igniting a broader economic firestorm. The fallout was swift and brutal. The USDA's April 2025 soybean report revealed a 13% surge in unsold domestic inventories, the highest April figure since 2019, as silos overflowed with crops no one wanted. At the Chicago Board of Trade, spot prices cratered 8.2% in mere days, erasing $470 million in commodity value and leaving farmers reeling. For growers like Matt Dunn, a fourth-generation farmer in Des Moines, this was more than a financial hit, it was economic exile. "We've been shut out mid-season with no contingency," he told the Wall Street Journal, his voice a haunting echo of thousands facing ruin. The American Soybean Association projected an 18% drop in farm incomes this quarter, with 11 Midwest states now grappling with moderate to high insolvency risks. This wasn't a market correction, it was a betrayal of trust, a deliberate strike at the soul of rural America. Why soybeans? They were America's largest bilateral export to China, a $14.3 billion lifeline for farm states that formed the backbone of Trump's political base. By targeting them, China didn't just hurt farmers, it sent a message to Washington: your strengths are our targets. Like a sniper aiming for a vital organ, China exposed the fragility of America's agricultural dependence. The cancellations came within 48 hours of Trump's tariffs, a clear act of retaliation that transformed a trade dispute into a political weapon. Economists at Rainbow Bank warned that this could mark a permanent pivot, one engineered to dismantle U.S. agricultural dominance for good. This wasn't a trade war, it was a strategic amputation, severing a critical artery of America's economy and leaving rural communities to bleed out. The human toll is staggering. In Iowa, grower sentiment collapsed, with farmers facing not just financial ruin but the erosion of a way of life. The USDA confirmed that farmers in 11 Midwest states now face a moderate to high risk of insolvency due to canceled forward contracts, a domino effect that threatens entire communities. As barns stand empty and auction signs dot the landscape, the soybean slaughter has become a symbol of betrayal, a reminder that global trade can be as ruthless as any battlefield. China's move was a calculated strike at Trump's rural voters, turning economic pain into a political liability for an administration already on shaky ground. China's new trade empire is rising in Brazil. They've spent $8.3 billion to sideline the U.S. This isn't just about soybeans, it's about controlling the world's food supply. China's shift to Brazil wasn't a knee-jerk reaction, it was a masterstroke, meticulously planned over years like a general mapping a campaign. Between 2020 and 2024, Brazil expanded its soybean acreage by 21%, fueled by $11.2 billion in agricultural infrastructure investments, many financed by China's state-owned development banks. Grain terminals in Santos, freight corridors from Mato Grosso, and the Ferroground Railway slashed internal transport times by 42%, according to Reuters. Brazil can now supply 70% of China's annual soybean demand, with fewer GMO restrictions, looser environmental standards, and stronger trade protections under BRICS agreements. This wasn't a stroke of luck, it was a calculated gambit, a fortress built to shield China from U.S. influence. The numbers reveal China's strategic foresight. Over the past 5 years, China invested $8.3 billion in Latin American logistics, including a $1.2 billion expansion of Brazil's northern grain corridor and equity stakes in the port of Itajaí. The Ferroground Railway alone cut transport costs from Mato Grosso by 35%, per the Inter-American Dialogue. These aren't just trade routes, they're geopolitical lifelines, arteries pumping food and power to a rising superpower. In 2024, 64% of China's soybean imports flowed through logistics networks with direct Chinese involvement, per Bloomberg data. By embedding itself in Brazil's supply chain, China has reduced its reliance on U.S. commodities and U.S.-controlled global choke points, like a nation fortifying its borders against a rival. China's willingness to pay premiums, 14 to 22 more per ton for Brazilian soybeans, according to Financial Times, Traders reveals the endgame. Short-term losses are a small price for long-term control, argued Min Yu, a trade analyst with China's Ministry of Commerce. This isn't about soybeans, it's about leverage. By securing Brazil's infrastructure, China has turned a trade partner into a strategic ally, sidelining the U.S. in the global food trade. Like a chess player sacrificing a pawn to corner the king, China is positioning for dominance, ensuring that Brazil's rise is not a temporary shift, but a permanent realignment. This pivot wasn't just about replacing a supplier, it was about rewriting the rules of global trade, tilting the balance of power away from the U.S. and toward a multipolar world. The implications for the U.S. are dire. Brazil's ability to step in wasn't happenstance, it was the result of years of Chinese investment, a slow-burning strategy that caught America off guard. As Brazilian ports hum with activity and Chinese-funded railways snake through the Amazon, the U.S. is left grappling with a new reality. Its role as the world's food supplier is no longer guaranteed. China's gambit has exposed the cracks in America's economic armor, forcing a reckoning with a future where it may no longer hold the reins. China is abandoning American grains for good. U.S. corn exports to China crashed 29% in months. This isn't just about corn, it's a blueprint for cutting America out entirely. Soybeans stole the headlines, but the story is far from over. U.S. corn exports to China plummeted 99% year-over-year in Q1 2025, according to the USDA's Foreign Agricultural Service. Meanwhile, China finalized a 3-year corn import agreement with Brazil's COAB agency, covering up to 9 million tons annually, worth an estimated $2.6 billion, per Reuters. In March, China's state grain reserve auctioned 1.2 million tons of U.S. corn, citing price instability and strategic rebalancing. The real issue, however, is trust or the lack of it. After years of escalating tariffs and politicized export controls, Beijing views U.S. agriculture as unreliable, a partner too volatile to depend on. This isn't diversification, it's insulation, as former USDA chief economist Joseph Glauber told the Wall Street Journal. China's actions signal a broader exodus from U.S. commodities, a deliberate retreat from a market it no longer trusts. HSBC's April 2025 Commodities Outlook revealed that China has secured long-term import contracts with Argentina, Brazil, Russia, and Pakistan, covering over 70% of its grain and oilseed needs. In contrast, U.S. agricultural exports to China fell 26% in Quan 2025, costing $3.2 billion in trade flows, per Census Bureau data. Like a ship abandoning a sinking port, China is charting a course towards self-sufficiency, leaving the U.S. stranded. The timing of China's pivot was surgical, designed to inflict maximum damage. March to June is the peak profitability window for U.S. soybean exports, accounting for nearly 40% of annual revenue. By pulling out now, China triggered a cascading sell-off during America's prime shipping season, undermining both price and volume. China's invocation of phytosanitary concerns citing fungal residue and pesticide traces lacks credible evidence, with U.S. soybeans consistently meeting international standards, per FDA and GAFTA audits. This isn't about food safety, it's a regulatory pretext, a dagger cloaked in bureaucratic language. China sidesteps WTO scrutiny by invoking non-tariff barriers, signaling unpredictability to U.S. exporters and eroding trust in American reliability. The ripple effects are spreading. Corn is just the beginning. Wheat, sorghum, and other grains could be next, as China diversifies its suppliers and builds a network of alternative trade partners. The U.S., once the world's granary, now faces the prospect of being sidelined, its agricultural dominance eroded by a rival that plays the long game. This is economic warfare, waged not with bullets but with contracts and infrastructure, a silent campaign to reshape the global food trade in China's image. China's trade moves threaten the U.S. dollar's reign. They replaced a $14.3 billion U.S. market in 72 hours. This isn't just about trade, it's a plan to dethrone America's financial power. Soybeans were the opening act, but the real question looms like a storm cloud. What's next? China's ability to abandon a $14.3 billion U.S. commodity in 72 hours with no shortages or domestic fallouts, a chilling proof of concept, a demonstration of power that reverberates far beyond agriculture. If China can pivot from soybeans, what stops it from targeting semiconductors, rare earths, or even U.S. treasuries? This isn't just a trade dispute, it's a rehearsal for a larger economic decoupling, a shadow play with stakes that could redefine the global order. The implications are profound and unsettling. China's infrastructure investments and BRICS alliances signal a deliberate disconnection, as former National Security Council advisor Jennifer Harris told Bloomberg. With political relations gridlocked, Beijing may have no desire to return to U.S. markets. The question isn't whether the U.S. can recover market share, it's whether China even needs the U.S. anymore. Like a chess player sacrificing a pawn to trap the queen, China is positioning for strategic dominance, building a world where American influence is diminished. The U.S. dollar, the cornerstone of global trade, could be the ultimate target. If China applies the same strategy to financial markets, the ripple effects could upend the economic order. The dollar's dominance relies on trust that the U.S. is a reliable partner, a stable anchor in a turbulent world. But as China builds alternative trade networks and invests in rival economies, that trust is eroding. This is no longer about farmers, it's about the future of American power. Soybeans were the fuse. The dollar could be the powder keg. The speed and precision of China's pivot, replacing a major U.S. commodity in 3 days, demonstrates a capability that extends far beyond agriculture. This is a warning. What China did to soybeans, it could do to the pillars of the global economy, shaking the foundations of a system that has underpinned American hegemony for decades. The stakes are global. Wall Street is watching, its traders parsing every move for signs of weakness. The Pentagon is watching, wary of a rival that wields economic power with military precision. The world is watching, wondering if the U.S. can hold its ground. China's soybean slaughter was a shot across the bow, a signal that the balance of power is shifting, and America must adapt or risk being left behind. America's economic future hangs in the balance. 11 Midwest states face bankruptcy risks, but this isn't just about saving farm sits, about reclaiming global dominance. The U.S. stands at a crossroads, battered but not broken, facing a future where its economic dominance is no longer assured. A diplomatic thaw could ease tensions, but China's deep investments in Brazil and BRICS alliances suggest a permanent shift, a new world order, where the U.S. is no longer the default supplier. The USDA warns that farmers in 11 Midwest states face insolvency risks, turning a trade war into a domestic political liability for Trump. Rural voters, once his staunchest supporters, now grapple with economic ruin. Their trust in leadership eroding as fields lie fallow and auction signs multiply. Recovery demands more than tariffs. It requires a bold, strategic overhaul. The U.S. must diversify its export markets, forging new trade partnerships in Asia, Africa, and Europe to reduce reliance on China. Investments in agricultural innovation, such as precision farming, drought-resistant crops, and sustainable practices, could restore competitiveness and rebuild trust with global buyers. Strengthening alliances to counter China's BRICS network is critical, as is repairing relationships with partners wary of U.S. unpredictability. The U.S. must also address domestic vulnerabilities, supporting farmers through subsidies, debt relief, and retraining programs to weather the storm. But time is short, and the challenges are daunting. Brazil's rise, backed by Chinese capital, may be irreversible, and other commodities like corn, wheat, or sorghum could follow soybeans into exile. The U.S. must confront the reality that its role as the world's food supplier is no longer guaranteed, a humbling shift for a nation accustomed to dominance. Like a fortress under siege, America must fortify its economic defenses, rebuilding from within while projecting strength abroad. The soybean slaughter was a clarion call, a stark reminder that in the 21st century, trade is warfare by other means. China has proven it can rewrite the rules of global commerce in 72 hours, wielding economic power with the precision of a scalpel. The challenge for America is to adapt before the next blow lands, to reclaim its place in a rapidly shifting world where power is measured not just in military might but in economic resilience. The world is watching, and the answer will shape the balance of power for decades to come. This is not just a story of soybeans, it's a story of survival, a test of whether America can rise to meet the challenges of a new era or fade into the shadows of a multipolar world. You've seen the playbook behind the headlines. Now stay ahead of the game. Subscribe to decode the moves shaping tomorrow's world, from trade wars to tech revolutions. Join the 1% who don't just watch the news but understand it. Hit that button, share this video, and follow us for the stories others miss. The next shift is coming. Will you see it first? Let's unravel the future together, one silent victory at a time. Area of U.S. unpredictability. The U.S. must also address domestic vulnerabilities, supporting farmers through subsidies, debt relief, and retraining programs to weather the storm. But time is short, and the challenges are daunting. Brazil's rise, backed by Chinese capital, may be irreversible, and other commodities like corn, wheat, or sorghum could follow soybeans into exile. The U.S. must confront the reality that its role as the world's food supplier is no longer guaranteed, a humbling shift for a nation accustomed to dominance. Like a fortress under siege, America must fortify its economic defenses, rebuilding from within while projecting strength abroad. The soybean slaughter was a clarion call, a stark reminder that in the 21st century, trade is warfare by other means. China has proven it can rewrite the rules of global commerce in 72 hours, wielding economic power with the precision of a scalpel. The challenge for America is to adapt before the next blow lands, to reclaim its place in a rapidly shifting world where power is measured not just in military might but in economic resilience. The world is watching, and the answer will shape the balance of power for decades to come. This is not just a story of soybeans, it's a story of survival, a test of whether America can rise to meet the challenges of a new era or fade into the shadows of a multipolar world. You've seen the playbook behind the headlines. Now stay ahead of the game. Subscribe to decode the moves shaping tomorrow's world, from trade wars to tech revolutions. Join the 1% who don't just watch the news but understand it. Hit that button, share this video, and follow us for the stories others miss. The next shift is coming. Will you see it first? Let's unravel the future together, one silent victory at a time.